So you got your newsletter, you got your nurture campaigns, you're sending out the emails, but you keep ending up in the spam folder, or you keep ending up in the social folder. And you've been trying to do the stuff, right? You're like, what do I need to do? Pulling your freaking hair out, trying to figure out how do I stay out of there, right? That's what I'm going to be addressing on today's episode of the BB&J podcast. I'm your host, John Lint. This is season 3. I wanted to announce that. Very excited, as you can see. Got this nice little logo. We set up the green screen in our recording studio, so I think I'm really excited. I'm super stoked to really try it out, get the most out of it. Let's get into it. So the most obvious thing, and this will probably show up in your average email, whatever platform you're using, whether it be Keep, whether it be MailChimp, whether it be part of your site host or whatever it is. Something that they'll usually tell you, but not always, which is why I'm telling you now, is reducing white space. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's say that this was an email, this image. For those of you who are just listening to the audio version, there's a nice little logo of BB Digital Lab and the text simplified version. We have been working on it, and me in the center, or kind of like the one half of it. And this is an example of pretty low white space. There's this little chunk in the bottom right-hand corner. But if this were an email, it wouldn't be bad. But let's talk about like actual emails, right? So your standard email is just text, maybe an image, maybe some emojis, but it's very much text, right? If you're sending an email to someone, a normal person, that's what the normal correspondence looks like. And most email services know that. So they focus on content that is pretty filled. And if you look at some of the more spammy or more, spammy kind of emails, a lot of times there's like an image and then there's like these big areas where there's not a ton of text, which, on a landing page, on graphics, looks great. Maybe you're doing that, right? Because, like I said, it does look better. I will recognize that. But that having a ton of white space, and I mean it's called that because on a normal page, the default background is white. So how much of the total content is being taken up by just the background? If your email, whether it be a newsletter, whether it be a drip campaign or what have you, is too much of that empty room, it's probably going to get flagged as spam. So what can you do about that? Figure out ways to reduce it. Add more text. If you have an image, maybe put some text next to it, but try to get the image and the amount of text to be about equal, so you're not leaving too much space. Try to reduce the amount of space between the different blocks of content that you're doing. So if you have like a learn more button, I mean, don't either make it bigger or don't put too many there. Don't have that be too far separated from the main text, or else the email will get flagged. You can have, I mean, this is true of so many things, isn't it? You can have the most beautiful email that you put so much time and love into that just looks wonderful. But if it ends up in the spam folder, you're kind of out of luck, right? People are a lot less likely, because to open it, because what do people normally see in their spam folder? Stuff they don't want to. I mean, some people don't even check their spam folder, but they're getting bombarded by all the emails, newsletters, follow-ups, reminders from all the different sites they visit. Oh, I accidentally gave out my email to this, and now I'm getting all these emails. They're reminding me to, I don't know, come back to the site or whatever. And if you're in that category, people are going to lose interest. They're going to drop out. You don't want that, right? So white space is the bare minimum that you should be doing. Reducing white space is the bare minimum that you should be doing to improve your open rate. The second thing I want to talk about is focusing your audience. Now, what does that mean? When I say focusing your audience, one of the things that mailing platforms look at of where to send you, whether it be regular inbox, social, spam folder, is that question of things like open rate, valid email rate. So if you're sending, like, especially like with a newsletter or mass email, if you're sending that out to a bunch of people who aren't opening it, or especially marking as spam, that's going to really hurt. That's a lot harder to come back from, because then you really have to sit down and figure out, how can I increase the open rate? There's definitely some ways to do it. If you're just mass sending it to everyone, maybe consider focusing it on the audience that you know, or you're pretty sure is much more likely to open it. Because here's the thing. If you're sending an email to 1,000 people, but it has a 10% open rate, you only get 100, right? That's not great. That doesn't look good for emails. Whereas if you're just sending it to the 400 who are much more likely to open it and engage with the content, whatever you're sending to them, and only 100 open it, that's 25%. That's a much better number, and that's much, much, much less likely to get flagged as spam. So doing things like that will make a difference. The other thing is, if you're sending to a lot of invalid or deactivated emails, that's going to hurt your where you get sent. If you're sending if you're sending your emails, your newsletters, or whatever it is, to a bunch of invalid emails, you're going to get flagged as spam. Is that simple? So whether it be you, whether it be someone you pay on Fiverr or Indeed or an intern or whoever you get, go through, check out the emails, try to trim it down a little bit. If you're figure out a reliable way to remove those spam emails, it's going to make a big difference. I mean, for one, if it's an invalid email, you don't want to be sending to them, because it's not going to help you. Like, they're not going to open it if it's a deactivated account. There's definitely services and platforms that can help with that. And I can definitely get into it more on another podcast if you guys are interested. But that makes a difference. The third thing that I wanted to talk about for this is verifying your email sender. This is a kind of weird one. This is actually the reason that I made this podcast to begin with. It's something that I didn't realize was an important thing for a very long time. Now I do. And you know what? Next week's podcast is just going to be about that because it's super important. You don't even realize, but verifying your email sender makes a world of difference. And if you've done the other things, if you've reduced the white space, if you've trimmed your emails and you're still getting sent to the spam folder, this is probably why. So what this involves is if you're sending from an email, so like for us, let's say it's John at bbdigitallab.com. But if I'm saying a normal email through that account, it's fine. But if I'm using a customer relationship manager or a CRM, and that's sending, and it just says that it's John at bbdigitallab.com. If I don't tell the site host that this is a valid sender, it's gonna, on the receiver end, it's gonna be like, okay, it says it's sending from John, but the domain is like MailChimp or Keep or whatever. Like, what's going on? And that's probably gonna get you sent to spam. That is a big thing that you need to be working on. So what do? Definitely going to get into it more. But you go to your site host, you find what's called the CNAME, right? It'll vary of where it is. And do you just the CRM you're using or the mailing platform will probably have a way. I mean, if it doesn't, then that's a problem. You might consider getting a new one, but it'll have an easy way to add the CNAME of like the ID, the domain. You add those things to the CNAME file, and it'll take some time, but boom. Like I said, I was trying to figure out like, okay, well, what can we do to improve where it's going? And it's like, oh, what's the CNAME thing? Well, apparently it's a huge part of staying out of the spam folder. So if you want to be getting a higher open rate, if you want to be getting to that inbox, you need to get that figured out. Like I said, I'm definitely going to kind of go more in depth about that. But that's all I have for you today. I'd like to thank you for tuning in, checking out season 3. I'm excited. We're definitely trying to up our game with this content. We preach content 24/7 pretty much. So it would be a little ridiculous if we weren't, regularly working on updating and improving it, right? Like I said, I'll get into that more later. Like to thank you for watching, listening, whatever it may be. And I'll see you next week. This has been BB&J Podcast. I'm your host, John. Thanks for, gosh, I keep saying it, but thanks for watching, really.